He gave me you, Terrell. He was my first love. Was my first love.
Man, you got flaws, Terrell. Ain't you got flaws? I'm not the same man you used to know before, Terrell. That's what you said, right? Why are you still making excuses for him?
If you don't forgive others of their past sins, then you can't be forgiven.
Have you asked yourself once, one time, what's best for us? For him, for your grandson?
This ain't about him. It's about Mama.
What we do, what we do, brick by brick, this how we move.
I put it on canvas so that I could hold it by the throat.
On a foundation built with bricks that we were never given.
Good afternoon and welcome to Washington Post Live in our Race in America series, co-produced with the Capehart podcast. I am Jonathan Capehart, associate editor for the Washington Post. Exhibiting Forgiveness is the beautiful directorial debut of Titus Kaphar. It's a painful and powerful autobiographical look at Kaphar's life. Playing him in this riveting movie is André Holland, and he joins me now. André Holland, welcome to Capehart on Washington Post Live.
Hey, glad to be here. Thank you for having me.
So I should tell you that watching the film was like a Washington Post Live reunion. You are now the third person. Andra Day has been here, and Anjanou Ellis-Taylor has been here. So finally, you are here. Thank you for being here.
Say the best for last, right?
Right. So, André, in Exhibiting Forgiveness, you play a successful painter and family man named Terrell. Terrell and his wife, Aisha, played by Andra Day, lead a wonderfully prosperous life with their son, Jermaine, and that fabulous four-door Mercedes sedan, I want to add. But what is Terrell going through behind that veneer?
Well, he's going through a lot. He has had an estranged relationship with his biological father. He has, as a result, repressed a lot of these sort of negative feelings that he has around his father and his own upbringing. A lot of the trauma that he's lived with is just sort of unresolved, and it's starting to show up in his work, and it's also starting to show up in his life. And his wife, played by Andra Day, is the first person to recognize that and who encourages him to deal with it. Terrell's very good at avoiding dealing with those complicated feelings, and it's the women in his life, played by Anjanou and by Andra Day, who sort of force him to deal with these difficult feelings.
Mm-hmm. So as I said in the intro, the film's not only Titus Kaphar's directorial debut, it's also based on his lived experience with his father. So how did you work together to bring his personal story to life?
Well, we spent, first of all, we got introduced to each other through a mutual friend, Terrell McCraney, who was the playwright who wrote the story Moonlight, or the story on which Moonlight was based, I should say. And yeah, Terrell McCraney called me up and said, listen, I've met this guy, Titus Kaphar, who's written this amazing script, and I think you should get to know him. And so we had a phone call. He sent me the script. I loved it right away. And then, the first thing that we both realized is that in order to do it and to do it right, I had to know how to paint. And so I ended up going up to his studio in New Haven and spending about 3 months with him. Starting from the very beginning, and just learning all about brushes and color and learning how to put paint on canvas. So that was a big part of it. And then of course along the way, he and I got to know each other quite well, and I got to know his family, and in doing so, got to understand the story in a deeper way.
Well, you anticipated a question I was going to ask. You spent 3 months. Every day of the 3 months, did you stand side by side, imitating his brushstroke? Did you talk? How deep did you get with him in order to understand him?
Yeah, we got quite deep, I'd say. It wasn't every single day, but it was, even the days when I wasn't in the studio, he gave me assignments. So I had my sketchbook. I had daily sketches that he would, check, and blind contour drawings, or I'd be sent to go to the museum to look at other people's work and start to develop my sort of critical eye around what I'm seeing. And then along the way, we had these amazing conversations where we talked about obviously art, the overlap between his practice and mine. We talked about our fathers often. Um, I don't have children, but he talks about his and what fatherhood feels like to him. So we really, really got quite close along the way. And thank God we had the time to get to know each other in that way, because I think it really shows up in the work.
I want to stick on the art here before we move on. There's a scene from the movie that I want to show, but there was something, and I'm glad in the intro video we showed that there's the scene of the three paintings side by side. You and André are sitting there. She's got her head on your shoulder, and as I was looking at the paintings throughout the movie, they're sort of deceptively joyful with the colors and everything, and it hit me when I saw the painting of the boy pushing the lawnmower up the hill. By the time you see that painting, you already know what has inspired that, and that's what made me think, wow, if you didn't know the story, you would think you're looking at Americana, like this happy, here's this kid working, to put some money in a jar and for ice cream or to start his own business. And yet once you know the story, the pain in the paintings sort of leap out at you. Or am I overanalyzing?
I think you got it just right, man. I think you got it just right. I think that's one of the things about the story that's really kind of profound and beautiful and that attracted me to it, which is that, yes, while, Terrell has this really difficult relationship with his father, and his father is, and this is a bit of a spoiler for those who haven't seen it, his father does exhibit some quite abusive behavior. And yet, there is another part of his father that is, capable of love, right? And who also taught him what discipline looks like, what hard work looks like. And without those lessons, I don't know that this character, Terrell, and dare I say Titus, would necessarily have had the career that they've had, right? So it's never just one thing. It's, the harm that his father caused, but along with that harm came this amazing work ethic that has produced incredible results. And so I think that's one of the things that Titus is doing in the paintings and in the film, is challenging people to look at these relationships in a more nuanced way, and to see that they hold many things.
Mm-hmm. And one of the lines that jumped out at me from Laurent, who plays Terrell's father, he said, "What I did wrong taught you to do right," which hit me all kinds of ways, as many scenes in this movie did. But I want to show everyone a clip of a conversation between Terrell and Laurent, played by John Earl Jelks, and this gets to the difficult relationship that you were talking about. Let's watch.
You forgive your father? Did you ever even like him?
Your grandfather was a complicated man, Terrell. Daddy would come home mad about something and try to take it out on Mama. Your grandmother was a living, breathing saint. Oh, he was a minister, but she was a saint. Man, when you was finally born, I brought you home to introduce you to your grandfather. He wouldn't even pick you up. I tried to put you in his arm. He walked right by. He went over to Mama and said, now that's your son. That's your lust for a heathen sinner. Mama looked him dead in the eye and said, Jesus is strong enough to save.
And so, André, as we saw in that scene, you see some of the mix of the themes that the movie explores: trauma, religion, toxic masculinity. At one point, Laurent tries to blame his father for how he parented Terrell. I would say yes. Is that fair?
It's a good question. Is it fair? I'm not sure, but is it honest? I think so. And I think the fact that it's honest is what makes it useful to the story. I'm glad you chose that clip because I think that's one moment, one of the few moments in the film where Terrell is able to see his father, not just as his father, but as a human being, right? Um, you know, what I hear and what John is saying in that scene is he's saying, yeah, you know, I had a father too, and I was his son, and you know, I looked up to my dad as well, and that I was like fragile at one point, and I needed support, and I needed love, and I didn't get the things that I needed, right? So on the surface, is it fair? No, it's not fair for him to, you know, use that as an excuse. But I think what Terrell is hearing, and I think what Titus is like urging the audience to hear is that the LaRon character is not just a villain, right? That he's not just one thing. There's like multiple facets to who he is. And I think that's what's happening throughout the film is Terrell's coming into this different understanding about who his father was. You know, and it's also interesting to think about the way that like art and life meet one another, right? So when I got this script in the first place, I was actually going through a thing with my father where he was quite ill, right? And we were, as a family, really, really going through it. And I was witnessing for the first time his own sort of frailty, right? And his own humanness. And so I got to see him in a different way. And you know, there's this sort of magic thing that sometimes happens when like art and life meet each other. And I think that was very much what happened in the case of this movie and my involvement in it. And I think yeah, I'm really grateful that I had somewhere to put these complicated feelings that I was experiencing. And I think they line up really nicely with what Terrell was experiencing in the story.
And as you told Variety, and I'm going to quote you back to you, you said, I knew it was going to call for an emotional honesty and availability, and that the things that were going on in my own life, I wasn't going to be able to tuck away or to hide. I had to bring all of that to the part, which is a scary thing to do, but that's the calling, man.
That sounds like me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you know, there was something else you said about this role. You said this role touched that thing in me that made me go, yep, I want to be a part of this. What is that thing?
You know, it's difficult to say, but it's like an intuition that gets ignited sometimes. It doesn't happen often, but every now and again it does happen. And as soon as I started reading the script, I felt it. I think it's probably partly me seeing myself in that part and, you know, understanding something about who this person is. And I think it's also probably to do with what Andre, needed or had to express at that particular moment, right? So like I was wrestling with certain questions that, you know, I read the script and I go, right, I can understand what this character is experiencing based on what I'm experiencing right now. I think part of that is what turns on that intuition. And then also, you know, when you read something like this, you can feel that it's so profoundly personal, right? It's not a script that someone wrote because they were trying to fulfill an assignment or, you know, their agent told them that they should because they might be able to get it made. This is something that was written because it needed to exist. Someone had something in their heart that they needed to say. And you can tell that right away from the very first lines. And I felt that with the story, so.
Yeah, this movie spoke to me on so many levels because I could see multiple family members in the acting, in the storyline, and so you know that's why I say it like it hit me in all sorts of ways, particularly the relationship between Terrell and LaRon. Uh, Before we move on to the broader questions of you and acting, there was another line in the movie that when it was said, I had to keep saying it over and over and over again to see if I could try to understand it. By the end, I think I got it. But the line was, and I think this came from, if you don't forgive, then you won't be forgiven. And so I'm wondering, you know, what does the film teach us about forgiving? Because I had a hard time. I still am having a hard time trying to forgive LaRon.
Yeah, yeah. You know, I'll say this. I grew up in the Black church down south, and I think the way that I was taught forgiveness was, you know, forgive and forget. right? Turn the other cheek. I recently have been reading some Toni Morrison, and she said something that I thought was pretty profound. She said, rather than forgive and forget, maybe we need to change the language that we use around that. And perhaps we say instead, remember and do better, right? I think that part of what the movie is saying is that forgiveness doesn't, first of all, forgiveness is a very bespoke experience, right? It's not going to look the same from one person to the next. Also, I think it's saying that, it's possible to forgive someone and also, you know, uh, not be in a relationship with them necessarily, to be boundaried around that forgiveness. I also think it's saying that forgiveness and reconciliation, as Titus had said before, are not the same thing. I think it's just offering us a more nuanced look at what forgiveness might actually entail. One of the scenes in the movie that really grabs people is the very end when, again, spoiler alert, when Terrell offers the painting to LaRon at the very end. And at the end of the movie, some people say, "Oh my God, I'm so glad he forgave him at the end." And other people say, "Actually, he didn't forgive him. What you talking about?" And so I think that's a part of what Titus is doing on purpose, right? It's like giving us a lens through which we can see it in like a multiplicity of ways.
Yeah, that scene was really powerful. Also because when Terrell hands the painting to LaRon, you already know why Terrell painted it.
Yep.
And once you know that and you see him give it to his father, that to me was when I was like, whoa, okay, Terrell is now free. He is free. Hope I didn't spoil anything. I don't think so, but it is worth watching to get to that scene. But let's talk more about you and acting. I'm gonna find my notes here. I read that you're very particular about the roles you choose, and you've turned down some opportunities. Why is that? Do you agree with this idea that you are very particular?
Um, sure, I do think that that's true. I am particular, but at the same time, I'm not, like I'm open to doing all sorts of things, right? I think sometimes people have this idea that like I'm just gonna say no to everything, and that's just not true. I say yes to many things, but I am particular. Like I want to do things that feel important, that feel like they have the potential to make some impact in the world. Things that aren't denigrating to my culture, to my family, and oftentimes those things are hard to come by. So I am comfortable. I've become more and more comfortable saying no when no is the right answer. But yeah, I feel that what we do as actors, as artists, is a calling, and I feel that I am responsible, to myself, to my community, to my culture, to my family, to the legacy of artists who've come on whose shoulders I stand, who've come along before me, to try and add something useful to the story. So yeah, that does make me a little picky at times.
When you said in that Variety interview, there are some boundaries around what I want to do, and I think you articulated what some of those are. Let's talk about some of the roles you've had. You've played Wendell Smith in 42, Andrew Young in Selma, Walter Fauntleroy in Shirley, Huey P. Newton in The Big Cigar. Is there an added pressure when you portray a real person, let alone a notable historic person?
For sure. Again, like I think in those cases, I always feel, it's a part of my practice to be like quite rigorous with the research and the, preparation. But I feel like in those situations, there's like an added layer of work that happens. In the case of Selma, for instance, on one of the early rehearsals, Ava organized this read through and she said, "Oh, we have a special guest today." And we look over and Andrew Young walks into the room and he sat there as we were rehearsing the scenes. And I thought to myself, thank God I did my homework because, I wouldn't want to be out here doing it wrong and saying it wrong and misrepresenting him. But I think that kind of points to what I was saying about actors as like custodians of culture, right? That like it's my responsibility to make sure that I'm representing this person in as honest a way, in as three-dimensional a way as is possible. And I do take that very, very seriously. And primarily because I believe that we as artists have an important role to play in like social transformation. Right now, I'm in a program at the Harvard Divinity School. I'm working on a master's. It's a program called Masters of Religion and Public Life, and we spend a bunch of our time talking about this very thing. How can we be more effective in the work that we do? And one of the things that we read recently is a book all about how artists can be and likely should be, at the fore of social transformation, and that the creative act is more than just a sort of whimsical thing. That it actually has real power and potency. And I want to make sure that I'm using that power in the best way possible.
So, first question before I ask you another question about Harvard Divinity School. When Andrew Young showed up, did he give you any tips? Did he make any comments?
He gave me some tips. He did give me some comments. But the thing that I got most from him, which is not something that he told me, and is not something that was in any of the books that I had read, is that he is hilarious. Really, really, really fun. He loved to joke, and like he just was constantly telling jokes. And I thought, wow, now that's a detail that you wouldn't get necessarily from, reading books in the library. You got to be in the room with the person to feel that.
Mm-hmm.
And, while we didn't necessarily see that show up in the movie, in the performance, it is a little bit in the essence of what I was trying to do, is to add a little bit of that spice to it.
Mm-hmm. All right, let's talk more about going to Harvard Divinity School, because I have noticed over, my many years of living that there is a certain quality, a certain personality trait that I start to pick up on people when they'll tell me some months down the road that they went to Divinity School, or I will just flat out ask them, "Did you go to Divinity School?" Because there's a serenity to the person in the way they are, the way they speak. And so, in doing my research, and I saw that you're going to Harvard Divinity School, and it's like, that makes perfect sense. That makes perfect sense just from seeing you. I've seen the other film, but in Moonlight, but also in this movie. So, what led you to go to Divinity School? Were you called to go to Divinity School, do you think?
Well, I was, but I think it's important to say that, the calling isn't one that's necessarily a calling to the ministry. This is about like the academics of religion, right? And I would say the thing that, that I notice about people who are in my cohort and the people I've met at the Divinity School so far is that there's a curiosity that I think we all have about our own sort of place in the world, about how our work can have greater impact, about each other. So maybe that serenity that you sense is like something to do with this like curiosity and this openness and this willingness to like be vulnerable and to risk, which I think again is like core to the creative act and also to transformation, which is what we all want, right? To build a more peaceful world. So.
I just wrote down the word grounded. I think that's the word. I think that's the word that comes to mind for me and folks who either have gone to Divinity School or are in Divinity School. Because in some ways, don't you think you have to be grounded in the sense you know who you are and you know what you don't know and you want to know what you don't know. You're curious about figuring out those aspects of your personality or of the world that you don't know about and want to know more about.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. That curiosity, we all, and that's one of the wonderful things about this program is that you're able to explore these curiosities in a myriad of ways. Like for instance, I'm, taking classes in the Divinity School, but then I'm also taking a class with an amazing professor, Imani Perry, who's an amazing writer, scholar. She's outstanding. It's a course called African American Intellectual Tradition. And then I'm taking another course with a wonderful guy, David Carrasco, who's teaching about, we're doing a Gabriel Garcia Marquez and Toni Morrison course that's looking at religion and liberation. And what I'm finding is that, all of these things are converging in the most exciting ways. And I know for a fact that they are going to impact the work that I do as an artist, as an actor. in profound ways. I don't know exactly how yet, but I can sense in the same way that I told you about that intuitive thing, that intuition that I felt when I read Exhibiting Forgiveness. I feel the exact same thing. I know I'm in the right place, and I know I'm around the right people, and good things are going to happen.
Mm-hmm. You know, Andra Day called you, and I'm quoting, your favorite actor's favorite actor. Two questions on that. What do you think of that high praise?
Man, Andra Day is like, she's like your favorite singer's favorite singer. She's so wonderful, so talented, and it's so kind of her to say that. She and I, you know, when we first met, we didn't meet before working on this movie, but as soon as we met each other, we locked in together and you know, talk all the time. We still are in touch with each other, and I just think she's just one of the dearest people in my life. She's so special and so talented in so many ways. I mean, what can't she do, right?
Right.
So I'm really grateful for her saying that, and I'll try to live up to it as best I can.
Well, she said, the last time I quoted something, I misspoke. It wasn't Variety, it was Vanity Fair. This quote I'm going to read is from The Hollywood Reporter, and this is what Andra Day said about you. Working with him was a great lesson in nuance and how to make something so loud while being subdued at the same time.
Wow. I guess I should probably send her a check or something for continuing to pick me up like this. That's so sweet. Uh, but I mean, I think that no. Sorry, go
Or
ahead.
maybe some flowers, but go ahead.
No flowers. Flowers. There you go. There you go. Yeah, I think that when you're working with actors like Andrew Day, like Anjanou Ellis, like John Jokes, who I mean, they're all so extraordinary. I feel like it brings out the best in you, right? So like anything that I'm able to do or bring is really just a result of um, my connection with the other actors who I'm acting opposite. And I think we all have the same kind of ethic around art, which I think is about giving all of who we are, you know, to the work. One thing that Dr. Cornel West said in a speech I heard a long time ago, he talked about James Brown and talked about having gone to see James Brown and how James poured all of himself into his work, right? And he had been on stage playing for 4 hours and he was exhausted and sweating. And he said, you know, to the audience, I'm an extension of you and I know you're an extension of me. Did anybody come here to hear a song that we didn't play? And he said, some sister in the back say, well, you didn't play Soul Power. And he said, hit it, Bootsy. And it's that kind of intention, I think, we are there to serve. And I think because we all are like-minded, myself, Andra, Anjanou, John Jokes, and the whole cast and crew, I think that's what creates that nuance that she's talking about. Because we're all willing to risk and we all want to show up for each other. So I'm still gonna send her the flowers, but she, you know, it's a group effort for sure.
In the couple minutes that we have left, is there a role out there that you most want to play?
You know, I get asked this question, and I probably should come up with a really good answer, but I have to say, I don't have one. You know, I think I played Hamlet once. I'd like another chance at that. But aside from that, I don't really have anything. I sort of know it when I see it. I know it when I feel it.
Mm-hmm.
I know I want to work with people who really want to work with me and who see value in my, you know, involvement. It's almost as important to me to be in an environment that feels collaborative and generative and honest and safe as it is to pick the perfect thing. So for me, it's more about trying to find, you know, a community of people who want to work in that kind of a way. Yeah, more so than like I really dream of playing, you know, whoever. So.
André Holland, the name of the movie, of your latest movie, is Exhibiting Forgiveness. Thank you so much for coming to Capehart on Washington Post Live.
Thank you very much for having me. And I hope people come and see it. It really is a movie that we're all super proud of. And I think by us coming out and supporting it in the theaters is what will allow us to make more movies like it. So thank you for the time. Thank you for having us and for your support, Jonathan.
Oh, and thank you again. And thank you for joining us. For more of these important conversations, sign up for our Washington Post subscription. Get a free trial by visiting, right there on the screen, washingtonpost.com/live. washingtonpost.com/live. Once again, I'm Jonathan Capehart, associate editor at the Washington Post. Thank you for joining Capehart on Washington Post Live.